In today's video, we're going to take a look at monthly squeezes. With January almost complete, I'd like to find stocks that I can pay attention to for the remaining part of 2024 and have some longer term positions in. Now, these 7 stocks on this list all have the squeeze signal arrow on the monthly time frame. So if I come into our max available data set to the monthly time frame and we come into Procter & Gamble, the first stock on this list, you'll notice we have this blue arrow here. That's the squeeze signal arrow that's telling us that we think the squeeze is likely to fire long and it should get going fairly quickly. So we're looking for the squeeze to fire, in this case, to the upside. Now, when we go through all 7 of these stocks, there's a few things I want you to pay attention to. The first is going to naturally be this P&L histogram bar. If it's red, we ignore that particular stock. It doesn't backtest well. The second is going to be our win rate, where we can see the winners versus losers. I'm looking for a high win rate, preferably as close to that 100% mark as we can, given that we're on a monthly time frame and we won't have a whole lot of data points like we will on the daily. I'm also comparing the average winner versus loser to make sure that either we can skew the risk reward in our favor or the winners naturally are much bigger than the losers. Finally, the last thing we'll really want to pay attention to with our monthly time frame is the trade duration. We're typically used to squeezes that fire in a few days, maybe even weeks. Here we're talking months. So if we use Procter & Gamble as an example, and we take a look at the 3 different times that we've had this indicator fire before, you'll notice that all 3 times this indicator has been a winner. It's been a good precursor for the squeeze to fire long and to give you an early entry in that particular squeeze. However, the one thing that I think you want to pay attention to is the trade duration. The first squeeze you'll see lasted about 3 months, the second 10 months, so nearly 1 year, and the third lasted longer than a year at 13 months. You still had that upward movement, but it was a little bit longer in terms of that trade duration you need to be prepared for. So those are the things I'll be paying attention to as we go through these 7 stocks. For all Volatility Box members, if you'd like to download the tools that I'm using in today's video to follow along, you can do so for free on our website, tosindicators.com/squeeze-course. And there, if you scroll down, you'll find the squeeze signals backtester underneath backtesters, along with the actual scans underneath our scan section. This is the scan I'm using, and I've simply just changed the time frame to the monthly time frame. Now, we already covered Procter & Gamble, where we saw that the backtest was positive, we saw our win rate was positive, and we saw the average winner was obviously, in this case, positive and greater than the loser, which didn't exist. The downside in Procter & Gamble is the trade duration, where you need to be prepared for a little bit longer of a trade. Let's see if we can't find some squeezes that might have smaller trade durations as well. Next up on our list is Tractor Supply, TSCO. Here, similar to Procter & Gamble, we can see a positive histogram, which tells us we have a positive P&L bar, 2 winners, 0 losers, so that's to be expected. The average winner, 33.59%, and if you take a look at the duration here, you'll notice this is less than Procter & Gamble. The squeezes tend to fire a little bit quicker and sooner. First squeeze signal was 6 months, second, 3 months. Inside of Tractor Supply, the other thing that stands out is this current bar on January 2024's activity is the second time we're seeing the squeeze signal in an active trade. The first time was back in October 2022, and this has still been active. So you can see that the squeeze has taken quite a long time to actually fire. This has been a very long monthly squeeze, and this is deviating from the typical trade duration that we're used to seeing. So Tractor Supply would be one that I have on my list. Looks a little bit interesting given that this is the second signal, but also I would say has the less appeal in the sense of we're breaking the average trade duration for this trade. We'll pick and choose at the very end, but let's keep going down the list for right now. Next up, we have Jacob Solution in Docs. So J. Here we can see similar to Procter & Gamble, 3 winners, 0 losers. Average P&L histogram bar, of course, positive, given that we have only winners, but you can see it's slightly dipped negative here for a little bit of time when the signal had a negative P&L. The average trade duration, the first signal, 7 months, second, 28 months in which this pullback occurred, and then finally 8 months. In all of these cases, though, the squeeze did still end up firing long, and the squeeze signal was a good indicator of when to actually participate in the squeeze to the upside. Next up, we had docs, and here we have only one winner, so only one data point. I'm going to ignore that. That doesn't really seem all that useful when we have some other stocks with 3 and 2 data points. Still not a lot, but more than one. Finally, we have PBH, CQP, and AutoZone. Let's take a look at all 3 of those. PBH, 0 winner, 1 loser. So here we can cross this off because it doesn't have a good backtest, and you can see that in the histogram bars. Next up, we had CQP. CQP, positive backtest, but only 1 winner. I'm going to ignore this for the same reason why we talked about earlier. Only 1 data point, not really too appealing. And finally, we have AutoZone. AutoZone, similar to Procter & Gamble here, 3 winners, 0 losers. We expect the P&L graph to be positive as a result. We've had this signal 3 different times in the past, trade duration 2 months, 3 months, and 6 months. So inside of AutoZone, those squeezes get going quicker than some of these other stocks that we've seen. The natural downside with AutoZone is how expensive of a stock it is, along with the fact that our squeeze signal is coming near or actually at all-time highs. So that makes it dramatically less appealing compared to something like a Procter & Gamble. So now if we had to rate all of the signals that we've seen here, we have Procter & Gamble, Tractor Supply, Jacobs Solution, and AutoZone. Those 4 were the ones that stood out. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Out of these 4, AutoZone, definitely the most expensive, but also the one in which we think that squeeze can fire somewhat quickly, and waiting for a pullback here seems like a smart idea instead of buying at all-time highs. Tractor Supply looks very interesting purely on the basis of this being the second signal after, technically, if you had gotten in October of 2022, you would have had to be waiting all of last year, and now finally you would be starting to see price move in your direction. So it feels like we're getting a chance to enter, having avoided all of this pain. So I would put Tractor Supply and Procter & Gamble at the top of my list, and after that I would have AutoZone as the next up in which we're waiting for a pullback. I hope for those of you trying to find monthly squeezes, trying to find longer term positions, you found this video useful. It's a nice way to go through monthly squeezes at the end of each month and find the ones that stand out, run the backtester, and figure out which stocks you'd like to pay attention to and which ones make your list. Take care, everyone. Good luck trading. Again, for Volatility Box members, be sure to download the tools if you'd like to follow along and run this exercise yourself, especially with tomorrow's activity when we have the official close of the first month of 2024. Take care, everyone. Good luck trading, and I'll see you in our next update.